Welcome to Star 221. Study Section 1. Sampling. Introduction. Have you ever tasted a hot soup and decided whether the soup was tasty or not? If yes, then you are a sampler. Sampling is a part of our day-to-day life which we use either advertently or inadvertently. Another example is a pathologist who takes a few drops of blood and tests for any abnormality in the blood of the whole body. The process of using information obtained from the smaller quantity to make statements about the larger quantity is called sampling. In this lecture, we shall examine why this process is sometimes necessary and the various techniques for doing it. We shall first learn some fundamental concepts which are related to sampling. Learning outcomes for study section 1. When you have studied this session, you should be able to define sampling, discuss the reasons for sampling, discuss the various procedures of sampling, distinguish between census, population, and sampling. Sampling definition. Sampling is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. The methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed, but may include simple random sampling or systematic sampling. Sampling and non-sampling errors. Any statistical inference based on sample results may not always be correct. This is because sample results are either based on partial or incomplete analysis of the population characteristics. This error is referred to as the sampling error because each sample taken may produce a different estimate of the population characteristic compared to those results that would have been obtained by a complete enumeration of the population. Non-sampling errors arise during census as well as sampling surveys because of biases and mistakes such as 1. Faulty planning, 2. Non-response, 3. Non-random selection of samples, 4. Incompleteness and inaccuracy of returns, 5. Compilation errors. In-text question. Dash is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. A. Statistics. B. Standard deviation. C. Sampling. D. Sample error. In-text answer. C. Sampling. Sampling methods. Several sampling methods are available, which are classified into two categories. 1. Random sampling methods. 2. Non-random sampling methods. 1. Random sampling methods. A statistic is a measurable characteristic of a sample, such as a mean or standard deviation. A sampling method is a procedure for selecting sample elements from a population. A random number is a number determined totally by chance with no predictable relationship to any other number. The following are examples of random sampling methods: simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, multi-stage sampling, simple random sampling (SRS). In this type of sampling, each unit of the population has equal chance of being included in the sample. If the units are drawn one by one in such a way that a unit drawn at a time is replaced back into the population before the subsequent draw, it is known as simple random sampling with replacement. SRSWR. However, if the unit selected once is not included in the population at any subsequent draw, it is called simple random sampling without replacement, SRSWOR. One disadvantage of this method is that all members of the population have to be available for selection. However, this availability may not be possible in most cases. Stratified sampling. This method is useful when the population as a whole consists of a number of heterogeneous groups while the units within each group are relatively homogeneous. Thus, population is divided into distinct groups called strata. A simple random sample is drawn from each stratum or group in proportion to its size. Individual stratum samples are combined into one to obtain an overall sample for analysis. Cluster sampling. This method is also referred to as area sampling method. It is useful when the population consists of a very large number of similar groups which are widespreading. It is devised to meet the problem of cost or inadequate sampling frame a complete listing of all members in the population so that each member can be identified by a distinct number. By the use of map references, the entire area to be analyzed is divided into smaller areas and a sample of the desired number of areas is selected by a SRS method. Such groups are termed as clusters. The members of the clusters are called elementary units. From each cluster, we may select a random sample of the desired size. Multistage sampling. In multistage sampling, the whole population is divided into a number of primary units called stages, each of which is composed of second stage units. A series of samples are then taken at successive stages. The sample size at each stage is determined by the relative population size at each stage. Non-random sampling methods. It results in a biased sample, a non-random sample of a population or non-human factors in which all individuals or instances were not equally likely to have been selected. If this is not accounted for, results can be erroneously attributed to the phenomenon under study rather than to the method of sampling. Quota sampling, judgment or purposive sampling, convenience sampling. 1. Quota sampling. This method is often used in market and social surveys. The selection of respondents lies with the investigator's discretion, although care must be taken to ensure that each respondent satisfies certain criteria which are essential for the study. Because quota sampling is non-random, it leads to substantial complications in the statistical analysis of the survey results. 2. Judgment or purposive sampling. In this method, the investigator selects units of the sample that he or she feels are most representative of the population with respect to the population characteristics under study. Great precaution is needed in drawing conclusions based on judgment samples to make inferences about a population. 3. Convenience sampling. Perhaps this is the easiest method for collecting data on a particular issue. The investigator simply selects units to be included in the sample at his or her convenience rather than following a pre-specified rule. Precautions are also needed in interpreting Precautions are also needed in interpreting the result of convenience sampling that are used to make inferences about a population. Some basic concepts of sampling. The following are some of the basic concepts of sampling. Census. Sample. 1. Census. A census involves a complete count or a complete enumeration of every individual member of the population of interest, such as persons in a country, households in a town, shops in a city, students in a college, and so on. Apart from the cost and the large amount of resources, such as enumerators, clerical assistants, etc., that are required, the main problem is the time required to process the data. Thus, the results are not known immediately. Two, population. In statistical sense, population is a group of items, units, or subjects which is under reference of study. It is often referred to as universe by a number of statisticians and scientists. The inhabitants of a region, number of cars in a city, workers in a factory, students in a university, insects in a field, etc. are few examples of populations. Generally, populations or universe is classified into four categories. Finite population. The number of items or units is fixed, limited and countable, e.g. workers in a factory. Infinite population. The number of items or units is uncountable, e.g. stars in the sky. Real population. The items or units in the population are all physically present or visible. Hypothetical population. The population result from repeated trials, e.g. the tossing of a coin repeatedly, result into a hypothetical population of heads and tails. Rolling of a die again and again gives rise to a hypothetical population of numbers from 1 to 6, etc. 3. Sample. A sample is a part or fraction of a population selected on some basis. In principle, a sample should be such that it is a true representative of the population. The process of selecting a sample from the population is called sampling, and the manner or scheme through which the required number of units is selected is called the sampling method. The foremost purpose of sampling is to gather maximum information about the population under consideration at minimum cost, time, and resources. Precisely, sampling is inevitable in the following situations: when population is infinite, when the item or unit is destroyed under investigation, when the results are required in a short time, when resources are limited, particularly in respect of money and trained persons, when population is either constantly changing or in a state of movement, when the items or units are scattered. Summary. In this study session, you have learned the following. 1. Sampling is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. The methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the type of analysis being performed, but may include simple random sampling or systematic sampling. 2. Several sampling methods are available, which are classified into two categories: random sampling methods, non-random sampling methods. 3. A census involves a complete count or a complete enumeration of every individual member of the population of interest, such as persons in a country, households in a town, shops in a city, students in a college, and so on. This is the end of study section 1. Thanks for listening.